History remembers Alexander the Great as unstoppable, a young king who marched east and shattered the largest empire the world had ever known. But what history rarely admits is how close he came to losing everything. Because at several moments, on dusty plains beneath burning suns, Alexander's fate balanced on a knife's edge. So today, we ask a dangerous question. What if Persia had defeated Alexander? What if the empire that was supposed to fall survived? Alexander's story begins in the shadow of giants. In 336 BCE, the Persian Empire stretched from the Aegean Sea to the edge of India. It ruled over tens of millions of people. It had roads, cities, treasuries, and armies beyond counting. Persia was not decaying, it was governing. Across the Aegean, Macedonia was a rough kingdom on the edge of the Greek world. Its new king, Alexander, was just 20 years old. Brilliant, charismatic, but untested. To many Persians, he wasn't a world conqueror. He was a rebellion that needed to be crushed. Alexander inherited an idea from his father, Philip II, that Persia could be defeated by speed, discipline, and daring. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed into Asia Minor with roughly 40,000 men. It was an invasion so bold, it bordered on insanity. Behind him lay Greece, restless, suspicious, ready to revolt. Ahead of him stood an empire that had crushed revolts for 2 centuries. And yet, battle after battle, Alexander kept winning. Not because Persia was weak, but because Alexander was fast, adaptive, and terrifyingly personal in combat. But history often hides an uncomfortable truth. Alexander's victories were never guaranteed. The first true test came at the Battle of Issus. Persian King Darius III personally led his army, vastly outnumbering Alexander. The terrain was narrow. Chaos reigned. Dust blinded men. Commands were lost in the noise. And yet, Darius fled. Not because Persia was destroyed, but because a single moment of fear spread like fire. That decision saved Alexander. But imagine for just a moment that it didn't. Imagine Darius held his nerve. Fast forward 2 years. The stage is set for the battle that would define the ancient world. Gaugamela, 331 BCE. The Persians choose the ground carefully. Flat plains, open space, perfect for cavalry and war chariots. Darius brings everything: infantry, cavalry, allies from across the empire. This is Persia at full strength. Alexander knows this is it. If he loses here, there is no retreat, no reinforcements, no second chance. History tells us Alexander broke the Persian center, drove toward Darius, and won the day. But that victory relied on timing, discipline, and luck. So now, let's change just one thing: the moment history splits. At Gaugamela, Persian cavalry successfully breaks Alexander's left flank. Macedonian lines begin to crumble. Dust obscures the field. Messages don't arrive. Commands fail. Alexander charges toward Darius, but this time Persian guards hold. The gap never opens. Alexander is wounded, not killed, but forced to pull back. And suddenly, something unimaginable happens. The Macedonian army begins to retreat. Alexander doesn't die on the field, but his myth does. Without a decisive victory, his coalition fractures. Allies lose faith. Greek city-states smell blood. Supplies run thin. Persia, meanwhile, does something history never allowed it to do before. It learns. Darius reforms command. He adopts elements of Macedonian tactics. Greek mercenaries, once Persia's weakness, become its strength. And slowly, inexorably, Alexander is pushed back toward Anatolia. The invasion stalls, then collapses. So what happens next? First, and most importantly, there is no Hellenistic world. No Greek-speaking empire stretching from Egypt to India. No fusion of Greek philosophy with Eastern science. No shared cultural language binding continents together. Alexandria is never founded. Its great library never exists. Centuries of accumulated knowledge vanish before they are ever written. History doesn't just slow down, it fractures. Persia survives, and not as a stagnant relic, but as a reformed superpower. The empire absorbs lessons from the invasion. It modernizes its military. Central authority strengthens. Satraps are monitored more closely. Revolt becomes harder. Persia remains the dominant power of the ancient world for generations. And Greece? Greece falls back into disunity. Without Alexander's victories, Macedon loses its grip. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, once again rivals. Democracy never spreads beyond the Aegean. Greek culture remains brilliant, but local. Then there is Rome. In our timeline, Rome inherited a Hellenistic world. Greek art, philosophy, science, already standardized and spread eastward by Alexander. In this alternate history, Rome grows up in a Persian-dominated world. Trade routes are controlled by Eastern powers. Cultural exchange is slower. Military doctrines evolve differently. Rome may still rise, but not as the empire we recognize. Its expansion eastward would meet a hardened, experienced Persian state, and Rome does not always win those fights. Even religion changes. Christianity, when it emerges centuries later, spreads through Greek-speaking networks created by Alexander's conquests. Without that shared language, the spread is slower, more fragmented, more regional. The faith that reshaped the world might remain one belief among many, rather than a global force, all because one king held his ground. And what of Alexander himself? He returns to Macedon not as a god, but as a man who dared too much. His legend fades. He becomes a cautionary tale, not the Great, just Alexander. This is the uncomfortable truth history rarely admits. Our world exists not because Alexander was inevitable, but because Persia lost when it didn't have to. Empires do not fall because they are weak. They fall because, at the wrong moment, the wrong decision is made. And sometimes, the future of civilizations turns on a single battlefield, hidden beneath dust and fear. If you enjoy cinematic explorations of history, stories about turning points, forgotten decisions, and the fragile moments that shaped our world, subscribe for more. Because history isn't just what happened, it's what almost happened.